Welcome. Today, I have the honor of introducing Tahsin Mashroof Hossain Mashfi, Deputy Director of the Police Staff College in Bangladesh and Superintendent of Bangladesh Police. He received his master's in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School and a master's in engineering from the Tokyo Institute of Technology. He's credited for the creation of both Project Warrior Women Bangladesh and the Dhaka Metropolitan Police mobile app. Notably, he served as the special representative of district police at the border of Myanmar during the mass Rohingya refugee exodus in 2017. And overall, Mashroof is an exemplar in the modernization of police standards and is a direct witness to the Rohingya experience in Bangladesh. Thank you again so much for coming, Mashroof. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine.
Of course. So let's begin with some questions. How about we start with a discussion of your work in the police agency? What inspired you to become a police officer?
Funnily enough, it's basically a movie. So in my college days, I went to North-South University in Bangladesh, and I used to watch a lot of movies. One movie particularly impressed me very much. That is The Untouchables by Kevin Costner. Sean Connery won the Oscar for Best Side Actor for that. So that movie portrayed the city of Chicago ruled by the mafia don Al Capone. And Elliot Ness was the character played by Kevin Costner. So he was a guy with his small band of police officers who are incorruptible. So they fought and they took down the mafia empire of Al Capone. So later I researched and I found out that although it's dramatized, but the basic and the most of it is actually true. So I was so impressed and I thought that, wow, if there is something that I should do with my life, I want to be someone like Elliot Ness. So I took the civil service exam and I ended up being a police officer.
Yeah, and in that movie, what in particular did you feel was inspiring? Did you feel like they were accomplishing a lot of good? Is that what you found?
What I found the most inspiring is the way they look at this insurmountable odds. There is corruption, there is this big guy with a lot of money, and police has a serious image crisis. But few good men decided to brave all odds. That is something really touched me, that they know that their world is crushing down. Still, they stood their ground. And of course, I was younger and I was full of romanticism. So these two things actually connected, and I took the decision that, well, I want to become a police officer. And police, like any other developing countries, in Bangladesh, police does not enjoy a lot of good reputation. So joining the police was a very brave decision from my part. My parents said that, well, why police? There are so many other careers. But then I told myself that, well, if there is something that needs good people, I believe I'm a good people, so I should be joining there and try to change the system from within, instead of just saying bad things about that particular department. So that's how I actually ended up being a police officer.
Right. Well, you speak about insurmountable odds, and I think a lot of that comes through in the work that you do. For example, you've been known for making innovative projects and even modernizing the police force in Bangladesh. For example, you're the creator of the Dhaka Metropolitan Police app. Can you tell us more about that specific project? What is the app's function, its purpose?
Honestly, calling me the creator would be a little bit of overstatement. I call myself the project initiator and the coordinator. So the place where I used to work was the north side of Dhaka city, that is Uttara. We call it Uttara. So when I started my career fresh out of police academy, I saw that people are very afraid to come to police. Whatever the problem, unless it's an extremely serious case like murder or rape or a huge accident, people would do anything and everything to avoid going to the police. So I thought that, okay, this has been going on for the last 200 years. And let me give you a little bit of context. Bangladesh police was actually what we see now as Bangladesh police. It came into function in 1861, when the British colonialists used to rule Bangladesh or the Indian subcontinent. So in 1857, there was a huge mutiny that ended the British East India Company rule, and the British government took over in 1857. And when the British government took over the function of ruling from British East India Company, they decided, well, we need a police force so that we can collect more information about the revolutionary activities and we can perpetuate our colonial rule. So they took the law and rules and regulations from Irish constabulary that they do in Ireland, and they customized it for the Indian subcontinent. And in 1857, there was this, the first Indian revolution against the British rule. And after it failed, of course, it failed. And after 1857, when British people, the rulers, realized that they need a police force who would gather more information, it is not possible to rule such a huge subcontinent just with the military. We need the local law enforcement. So they created in 1861 the law enforcement body, the federal law enforcement body that would actually enforce the law throughout the Indian subcontinent. And Bangladesh police actually came into force in 1971 when Bangladesh got independent, and we actually carry a very glorious history of fighting against the Pakistani military junta when they came to Bangladesh and they captured, and they were actually trying to rule us for 24 years. So from 1857 to 1947, that particular law did not change. The Police Act 1861, that did not change. And you know, as a student of political science, you know that the philosophy is very important, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever law that you have, what is the philosophy of the law? What exactly do you want to accomplish with that particular law? So the philosophy of that particular law was to continue the colonial rule. And that law helped the British people to continue their rule for 90 more years, almost a century. So 1947, the British left, then Pakistani rule started from 1947 to 1971. So see that from 1857 till now, that same law is there. The law has not changed much. The British left, then the Pakistanis left, and now we actually rule ourselves. But the nature of the law didn't change, which makes police, inherently, it is bound to be a suppressive and oppressive force. And since it has such a long history of suppression and oppression, the fear of the people towards police, I realized instantly. I was very young, but somehow I realized, I talked to some smart people, they said that you cannot change it within a day. So I was thinking that there must be something that I can do. Then Arab Spring happened. Arab Spring was happening then. The social media was actually breaking down countries after countries in the Arab. So then I thought that social media is so powerful, why don't I open a Facebook page where the citizens would actually write their problems, and by reading that problem, I would instantly send my police team there. That became widely popular. I mean, look, I do not claim any credit for this. It just happened. I was in the right place at the right time, and some idea came. So that was widely popular, and people started to praise police that, wow, they're trying to do some new things, and they're actually trying to provide service to the common people. They're trying to remove the fear. So from that page, many ideas came. For example, one idea was to open a digital safe zone. So putting overt camera instead of covert CCTV, the camera was overt. We considered some places, some center of Uttara as safe zone, digital safe zone. How? There was camera. And we found out that by putting overt camera with signboards that you are being watched, what happened is the crime shifted from that area. Within the camera, whether the camera worked or not, people did not try to commit crimes. So we put some camera in the strategic places, and that's how we reduced and shifted the crime from that area. And the mobile app, first I started in Uttara in a very small way. There were two friends, my two junior friends, Tariq and Tanmoy. They said that, Bhaiya, why don't we make an app that would help the police to know where the crime is happening? So if when a crime is happening, and if somebody has an app, by using that app, he can immediately call the police. It's very simple. By using the Google map, so it will be user-friendly. How? The user-friendliness will come this way, that you as an ordinary citizen, seeing that in front of you, one crime is happening, a murder is happening, or a dacoity is happening. So you click the app. And by clicking the app, it will show the nearest 3 police stations. So you click one, previously, the jurisdiction used to overlap. So when the crime is happening, people didn't know where to call. That is why this app came into play. It's a very simple concept. And I say that I did not create it. I was just the project initiator and coordinator. I would give the credit to Tariq and Tanmoy, two BUET students. BUET is Bangladesh University of Engineering Technology. I just bridged the gap between the experts and the police department. So that is how first we started in Uttara. When it became very popular, then the then police commissioner, Mr. Benazir Ahmed, he said that, well, since it's so popular in Uttara, why don't we do it for the whole city? So that's how from Uttara division, the whole Dhaka Metropolitan Police was covered. And it was the first ever app, as far I know, the first ever app created by any government agency to provide support to the citizens. And now, after like 7-8 years later, I did this in 2014. Not I, my whole team did that in 2014. And our effort, later I was also nominated for President's Police Medal for Service back then. It was a good recognition, I would say. And then after 8 years, now all the government agencies use social media, and there are many apps. I do not claim that I did it deliberately, but I was fortunate enough to be in that particular place at the right time. And from my experience, I saw that from a very small start, very humble start, it grew national-wide, and at present, it's a national policy.
Great. Well, what was that process like of that idea beginning to sprout in other communities as well? Did you see any issues in the application of this idea into other locations, or do you think it worked seamlessly and that it was a universal enough idea that it could work elsewhere?
Well, when it started in Uttara, and from Uttara, it actually spread to the entire Dhaka Metropolitan Police area. So government agency is making an app. Generally in Bangladesh or in Indian subcontinent, government agencies are considered, it's a public perception that they're not very tech savvy. So police is also considered it's more primitive. So people actually got, very surprised to see, they were pleasantly surprised to see that, wow, police is making an app, police is using Facebook. So from there, many other organizations made their apps. For example, the health department made an app which covers all the medical stations and all other emergency services like police stations, medical stations, and the fire stations of the particular area. So in this way, many apps came into page, and this idea, many other agencies modified it, they made it even more better. So the concept started there, but it started, and from there it spread in other departments.
Right. Well, earlier you mentioned the Arab Spring as an example of the power of social media. The Arab Spring is also characterized by distrust of government, which is a growing distrust, including of the police around the world recently, including in Bangladesh as well. So given that recent increase in distrust of police, have you faced any resistance to your program in local communities, given that it involves an increase in the involvement of police in their lives?
Look, police is an organization. It is impossible for police to make everyone happy. And 50% of the clients of police, the common people who come for getting help to the police station, 50% of them will most definitely be unhappy. I explain how. So somebody came to you with a complaint. And when he comes with a complaint, there is another party. So there are two parties. So after your investigation, if you see that, well, he is right, you give your report on his favor. Then the other party would say, well, police did not do justice to me, irrespective of whether they are guilty or not, whether they're innocent or not. 50% of the people, whoever comes to police or who is involved in any case, would be unhappy. That is given. That is not only in Bangladesh, that is anywhere else in the world. So naturally, and also I just told you the history of Bangladesh police. its colonial past and its colonial traditions still continuing. So having distrust for the authority, having distrust for the police, having distrust for the government, it is actually not very uncommon in a developing country like Bangladesh. But surprisingly, it was beyond my imagination the way people welcomed this effort. So I not only did not face any resistance, people welcomed me as if we are heroes. We are changing things. It came all over the media and people praised it, and all the authorities praised it. The Home Ministry, which controls the police, the Home Ministry also appreciated it very much. I was called to the Prime Minister's office in the Access to Information project, and my project was given a Kaizen reward. It's from Japan. Kaizen reward is Japan, from the Japanese government. I visited Japan with my project. So the question that you asked, the answer is fortunately no, we didn't actually face any resistance. People welcomed it.
Okay, well, in addition to the growing distrust I think we see around the world, even if it's not experienced in your experience with the project, I think there's often a concern with heightened surveillance that it leaves a permanent record for sometimes small mistakes. For example, you told a story to the Daily Star in 2014 about choosing not to arrest a group of youths who later went on to university. So how do you reconcile this tension between mercy and rehabilitation with the surveillance nature of the app?
First of all, I'm a huge believer of democracy. I'm a huge supporter of people's right to freedom of speech and their inherent right to freedom. I strongly believe that. And I also believe that if I'm a true professional police officer, my duty does not contradict those demands. My duty does not contradict human rights, because a police officer who is supposed to do his duty properly, professionally, he can never support something that is contradict to the human rights, because human rights is inherent right for all mankind, and Bangladesh is a signatory of the Human Rights Convention. And also our constitution, our Bangladesh constitution actually ensures the human rights for all the Bangladeshi citizens. So any police officer doing anything against human rights, any police officer who violates the human rights actually gets punished. And there is strong mechanism that we have that actually catches the person who uses excessive use of force, or who uses any sort of surveillance or any tools that is beyond the law. The police officer cannot go beyond the law. But then again, we do not live in a perfect world. So I definitely agree that there are instances where police actually did not do their job properly. They behaved in an unprofessional way. And it happens. I'm not defending this, but as a police officer, I strongly believe that if I do my job properly, if I respect the law, I'm not above the law, right? I'm not above the law. Nobody is above the law. So as a police officer, I believe that people's right to freedom and people's human rights do not contradict with my job. And I would say that my experience with the people has been nice so far. So I try to behave nicely with them. I try to be empathetic with their problem. And empathy is very important. Look, there would be tension because police is the authority sent by the government. And there is common people who have demands that sometimes goes against what government is ready to give them. So there would be tension. Police is basically the shock absorber between the two parties. But even under all those limitations, I strongly believe if there is empathy, if there is professionalism, if there is genuine will to listen to the people and help them out, I believe that there is no space for any contradiction between the job of a police officer and people's right to freedom.
Great, thank you so much. So let's shift gears to your experience with the Rohingya people. For context, can you tell us a little bit about the refugee crisis and the Bangladesh police's initial response?
So when the refugee crisis was happening, I was an additional SP back then in a training center. So my job was to train people who come to this training center, the police officer. It's an in-service training center in a place called Bandorban. It's a remote district. It's in the hill tracts. So Bandorban has a border with Myanmar. And I still remember it was a Friday. Some of my friends came from Dhaka to meet me. And I was having food with them. After the Jummah prayer, I was having food with them. I was discussing. Suddenly, there was an emergency call on my wireless set that the superintendent of police is calling you. There was an emergency meeting. So I went there, and I knew that something is happening. But I'm not in the operational side. I'm the in charge of training center. So then I came to realize that the intensity of the crisis. I was told that even then we didn't know how many people are coming. So we were told that thousands of people are crossing the border, and they are actually occupying the streets, and there is tension. The local administration is falling apart, and there is only 20,000 people and almost 1 million people coming towards that. That was the gross estimate, plus minus, within 7 days. So imagine there is 20,000 locals, and there is 600,000 to 1 million people coming from a different country in that particular area. And it is literally, it's a very remote area. From Bandorban, it takes 5 hours of road journey because the road is hilly and the road is not really highly developed like the highways. So even from Bandorban, it takes 5 hours to go to the place which is called Tumru-Konarpara, the border, Tumru-Konarpara border. So I was told that we need an officer who will stay there as long as they need and control the situation from there. As the superintendent of police, I cannot go there, then who will run the district? My boss told me that. Shonjit sir, he's now in Dhaka Metropolitan Police. He told me that I need an officer who would go there on my behalf, who will represent me and district police, who would be there as the special representative and control the situation and brief me. Then I volunteered. I said that, sir, if you allow me, I would go there. And he agreed. And then I went there first immediately, changing my gear and everything. I was in the prayer dress and I changed, and immediately I went there. What I saw, I can only compare this with the video footages that I saw of 1971. In 1971, when the war broke out in Bangladesh, when the Pakistan army started massacring the people in Dhaka, then many people in the borders, that includes my forefathers as well. So I've seen some video footages, how people just taking the bare minimum of what they have in their house, in a box, or they just took it with a bed sheet. They put all those things, and that's how they put it on their back, and then they just ran with their lives, whatever little they had. These footages I saw, black and white footages in 1971, but I felt that this is happening right in front of me in 2017. This is happening right in front of me in 2017. I was like, what's going on? The fear in the eyes of those people, the little babies there crying. You cannot realize this. You cannot realize what's happening there. Even sitting in the district headquarters in Bandorban, you have to go there. You have to physically go there. And I understood that if this continues, there are many possibilities. And the worst outcome that we were expecting was war between Bangladesh and Myanmar. Because both the militaries were on highest alert, and our prime minister actually opened the border. She said that, well, we will not let the innocent people die. She said that, and I really salute her for that. So I was thinking what I can do. And I was very fortunate that my lead and boss empowered me. He said that you go there and I'm giving you my authority and you take decisions. If you're confused, you call me, I'll tell you what to do. So, and my team, I took a couple of people from district headquarters to accompany me, and there were some other peoples. So I briefed them, and these people, these police officers, I'm very proud that they worked day and night. They literally forgot about themselves and they worked day and night. They said that, sir, this is our chance to stand tall in an international crisis. This is what we have been given this job as police officers to support the poor people, the people in distress. So they worked day and night. I'm very proud of them. I'm very, very proud of them. Many of them didn't even care about their own belongings. Whatever salary they had, they just bought food and distributed. It was the initial part of the crisis. It was the initial part of the crisis. So in that initial part, nothing was happening except from the local administration falling apart. Everybody was scared. We were also scared. I mean, we were not superhuman beings. So many people in such a small area. The locals were only 20,000. So it was before the national and international help arrived. So the things that we did, we increased our patrolling, and the language is more or less similar. There are some local peoples who could speak the same language. It is very similar to the localized Bangla. So we said that police is there should not be any crime, and if there is someone who's trying to create any trouble, you let us know. We first ensure that our presence is known, and there is administration, there is police. We first let our presence known, and we actually, and also you'll see that whenever there is a crisis, miscreants from other districts come here to take advantage of that. We knew that. So we were on high alert as well. And we arrested some criminals also. To make an example, we say that anyone trying to commit crime will go to jail. They will face the highest consequences the law prescribes. So that was also a message to the criminals that not now, don't try to mess now. It's a national crisis. It's a national crisis. We have to cover this. And all the agencies like the military, the border guards, and the administration, and the doctors, we all worked hand in hand in this crisis till the national and international help arrived. So that is the experience that I had. And one thing I would say, it is unbelievable what could happen in this century. What I've seen in my own eyes, this should not happen anywhere else in the world. I will tell you one anecdote. That anecdote is, I had a friendly relationship with someone called Dil Muhammad. He studied in University of Yangon. I still remember he could speak 3 languages fluently: the Myanmar language, Bengali, and English. Many international news agencies interviewed him. So this man, he was probably the local representative of the Myanmar part, and he had a lot of leadership capabilities. He actually organized many things whenever the help came. He organized this to distribute easily, and people respected him a lot. And there was a joke that was going on. I wouldn't call it a joke. It's politically highly incorrect. But you know, I mean, the environment that we live in, which we try to be politically correct and we maintain some norms, that situation, these people, they come from a very different background, and that environment is very different. So the joke was like this: even when air passes a Rohingya woman, she gets pregnant. We saw that most of the girls were pregnant after a couple of months. And I asked Dil Muhammad that, brother, you don't have a country right now, you are sort of refugees. You're not being able to live in your own country. You've been persecuted mercilessly. You're living in a new country. You have no passport right now, and you almost have nowhere to go, and you don't have a house. How comes all these women gets pregnant, and how this happens? I asked this question, and what he replied, I will never forget this for the rest of my life. He said that, brother, all these women you see who are pregnant, it does not come out of love. It is our survival strategy. I said, how? How is it a survival strategy? He said that whenever a Myanmar military member sees a woman who probably has grown a little, they would definitely rape her. All the women that you see, they would definitely rape them. But when they are pregnant, generally we have found out that they hesitate. They generally don't capture them and rape them. So what we do, whenever our women have their first period, we try to marry her off, and we try to get her pregnant. And that is how all these women you see are pregnant. It is not that we are in. I mean, by then I served seven plus years in police, and I've seen my fair share of violence and death and injustice. But when I'm saying this to you right now, I still cannot believe that in 2017, 2018, in this time when there is internet, when you can do Facebook and you take pictures, and you can connect to anywhere else in the world within a second, these sort of things can happen. And I would give my personal opinion there. Anyone who is responsible for that sort of atrocity should face the law, should face the consequences of the law. Today, tomorrow, 50 years later, 100 years later, there should be some consequence. Otherwise, I would totally lose my faith in humanity.
Well, evidently, it sounds like it was a very violent and concerning time. But in addition to that, it sounds like it was very chaotic. So how did the police force's strategy change throughout the crisis as the population was changing, as the crisis itself was changing? How did the actual strategy and approach develop?
So the job of the local police administration was to hold the fort till the national and international help arises. So till then, the police officers from all the local districts, Cox's Bazar, and we also had the armed police battalions, the reserve forces. Our job was to make the law enforcement scenario of that entire area very vibrant, to increase the visibility. So whenever you see, so we did a lot of patrolling. And we used hand mics, and we used local communicators who speak the similar language. And I remember one sub-inspector Rupam, he could speak fluently their language. And he also, he worked really, really hard. So our main object was to ensure that people have faith, that there is administration, there is police, there is government that's present there. Because if we could not, first of all, it's too early. It's like 20,000 people, barely less than 100 police officers, From Bandarban district, it would be less than 100, definitely. Some other districts more. So the initial shock, before the chaos bursts out, we ensured the maximum visibility of police. We actually saw the patrolling routes, and we increased the patrol, and instead of patrolling only a few times, we increased the number of patrols that we do during the time, both day and night. And we activated our informers that if there is any trouble, and we also sought help from the Rohingya people as well, that if there is any evil thing that is happening, any crime that is happening, or you think that it might happen, you let us know. So We increased the patrolling, we increased the police visibility, and we continued that. We worked, 5 times, 4 times, 6 times more than regular, till the help from national and international community arrives. That was our short-term strategy. And then when the others involved, then the experts came, the international community came. Then our role shifted to the distribution. We helped the local administration to distribute, and also we recorded the name and we took the fingertips. We also helped the administration to get those things done. So before this short span of days, 10, 15 days, it was our job to ensure that no mishap takes place. And then when the help came, the international community came, and also I must say, the common people of Bangladesh became very sympathetic at that moment. So they also came with relief, they also came with food, and they donated money. And the NGOs, both national and international, they donated money. International organizations like Red Cross and the aid agencies, they also came. Then when everyone came, our job became much easier. But we were really, really afraid that in this short span of 10 or 15 days, if something happens. But fortunately, our team was very hardworking and we were lucky.
So you've spoken a lot about what seemed to work or what was successful in the strategy, but was there anything that you wish that you or the police agency had done differently during that time?
Actually, at that time, I would say that, of course, there was not many shortages. And I'm very proud to say that even within that shortage, we did our best. Mm-hmm. But I wish, not from the police perspective, as from humans perspective, the violence that I've seen, I wish the international community pressurized Myanmar more so that that sort of violence didn't take place. These people, they put landmines on the border. And we've seen in our own eyes that common people crossing the border, the mine, right in front of our eyes. And we are police officers, of course, we have seen a lot of violence, but you never get used to violence, especially the violence of innocent men and women and children. So I wish that there was some way that sort of violence would have been stopped. More pressure to the Myanmar. As police officers, I think we didn't do a perfect job, but we did the best that we could. And I'm very proud of my team.
Great. So overall, how do you think your firsthand account of the Rohingya crisis has informed your approach to community justice?
I realized how racism can create monsters. And racism not only can happen between a black guy and a white guy or a brown guy. I did not have some sort of education regarding this. I did not know that so many shades of racism can happen. Racism can happen within the family. Two brothers, maybe one brother looks a little different than the other. So the parents might do the racism towards that person. And racism can happen based on economic status as well. If someone is poor, maybe you look down upon them. That is also one sort of racism, the social racism, the cultural racism. So I realized the Myanmar military junta, they did not consider the Rohingyas as human beings. If they considered them as human beings, it is impossible for a human being to do such an atrocity to a fellow human being. And from there, later I went to US to do my higher studies based on that experience. And I saw a completely different world. From Bandarban, I went to Boston. And US is very different from what I've seen there. And my approach towards policing changed in a way that I told myself, within the best of my ability, I would never let any racism, any discrimination, any disparity be inside my heart that would stop me to do my duty impartially. Mm-hmm. That is something I that is the lesson that I have had, because I saw that if I let racism grow in my heart, I can end up becoming a monster, and I can do things that is unspeakable, unthinkable.
Mhm. Well, I think this idea about stopping discrimination and prejudice is a good segue into our final topic, which is about the Project Warrior Women Bangladesh that you started with Abdullah Muhammad Hussain. Could you tell us a little bit more about that idea and how you went about starting it?
Well, in 2015, during the 2015 or 16, I mean, the 2 years are like very, very close, and it's 7 and 8 years ago. So in one New Year, for the first time, Bengali New Year festival is like very festive. And if you come to Bangladesh, you definitely enjoy that a lot. People wear colorful dresses, they dance, they sing, they eat the signature dishes. So it was beyond our imagination. It never happened before that sexual harassment would happen in Dhaka, the capital city of Bangladesh, in Dhaka University, which is like the cultural capital of the city, I would say, the Dhaka University, our oldest university. So there, many girls were sexually harassed during the New Year. Men and women, they were singing and dancing, and suddenly this happened. And among the victims, I had a few friends, very close friends, and some distant cousins as well, who were very dear to me. And one of them called me and cried that this happened. Bhaiya, please do something. Bhaiya means brother. Brother, please do something. You're a police officer. We look up to you. I was in Japan then. And I felt so helpless that I'm in Japan and this is happening in my city. I could not accept this. And I have a sister who means my younger sister, who means the world to me. I was thinking that, what if she was there? Would I just give up because I'm in Japan if my own sister was there? So I came back and I was posted to hill tracks again. And I was thinking that, what can be done? Then I realized something. That is, what if we teach women to fight back? Very basic self-defense techniques. Anyone who can learn. There are some soft and very sensitive parts of a male anatomy. 3 or 4 moves that if I can teach, which wouldn't take much long time. If women can fight back, because the major problem in Bangladesh is that in a patriarchal society, if a woman is sexually harassed, her family would ask question, nobody else get harassed. Why did you get harassed? Victim blaming. It's very common in a closed society like Bangladesh. So I thought that, and the woman or the girl just consumes that experience as if it never happened. Because if she goes to seek justice, it's a different ballgame, and there is public shame and there is harassment. So she refuses to report. She tries to stay aloof from it. I was thinking that I remembered the law that I read in Police Academy, which gives everyone the right to fight back. And our law is like that. If somebody tries to rape a woman, to stop rape, if she kills the assailant, she would not be persecuted for murder. It would be self-defense. It is within our penal code. Mm-hmm. I thought that when the sexual harassment is happening, it is very unlikely that a police officer would be within the vicinity. Mm-hmm. Because if there is a police officer, the assailant will not generally, you wouldn't dare to do something in front of a police officer, right? Mm-hmm. Because you would be caught by them. So what can be there? That small reaction time, what can be done? So I thought that maybe I would train a few women who just would not accept that they are being attacked. And there is this response, flight, fight, and freeze. In most of the cases, when such threat happens, women freeze. And because they freeze, they are so afraid that they freeze, the fight response is very uncommon. Freeze or flee. Generally, they cannot flee because the assailant sees that there is not much way to flee. So she freezes. She is so scared. What if we train women to break that mental shackle and fight back? So Abdullah Sensei, he's a 4th degree black belt in Kyokushin Karate. He's a friend of mine. We discussed and he said that, brother, you are thinking of some sort of training, and I'm a professional trainer. I'm 2 times Bangladesh champion on Kyokushin Karate. Let's open a program for women. So that's how we started our women. And so far, more than 200 girls actually graduated from this 8-week program.
Wow.
And in many cases, they fought back. And there are some very pleasant, positive outcomes as well. For example, some of them, I'm definitely not mentioning their name, they were oppressed by their husband. They were the victims of domestic violence. Husband comes, beats her up, and goes on with his life. So I remember one incident, one girl who graduated from our program, she came to meet me and she said that, brother, this time when my husband tried to beat me, I grabbed his hand and I twisted it, the technique that I've learned. He was stunned, and from that moment, many months have passed, he never dared to raise his hand. So I hope to do it in a larger scale. It is very difficult. Sometimes it gets stalled, especially during the COVID. The program was almost, but it's still there. I hope that someday it will go in a bit bigger scale, hopefully. And my dream is to include self-defense in girls' curriculum in Bangladesh. The day I would be able to do it, I would consider myself that maybe I have contributed just a little for the development of my country.
Well, I mean, that sounds like very important work. But it sounds like there is also a lot to be done for the future of the women's empowerment movement in Bangladesh. How do you think teaching women to protect themselves might contribute to this movement?
It's a mindset. Fighting against the oppression. Look, self-defense is your basic right, basic human right. Every human being has the right to life. That is basic human right. So if somebody tries to rape you, if somebody tries to sexually harass you, instead of being the perpetual victim, if you start fighting back, you are not depending on your brother, you're not depending on anyone else, and police will come later. But when you are being attacked, you are instantly fighting back. You are trained to fight back. Our women, in most of the cases, they don't know they can fight back. I can give you an example. In the village areas, and even in the small towns, the girl is probably 18 or 19. When she goes out, the parents says that, don't go alone, take your brother. The brother is probably 10, 12 years old, small kid. Still, he's a man. So he would take his 18 or 19-year-old sister to the college and come back. So it is, of course, it has other implications, but it is mostly in the mind. And I faced tremendous resistance even from some women who said that, no, if we learn how to fight, what is the job of my brother? What is the job of my husband? It was very difficult for me to convince them, me and Abdullah Sensei. It was very difficult for us to convince them that, well, your brother is there, your husband is there, police is there, fine. But there is high chance that you'd be attacked when none of them is nearby. So you are your first protector. And by teaching them self-defense, and if you study martial art, you would know that It is not just about some physical moves. It changes your mindset, teaches you discipline. So I believe that for hundreds of years, Bangladeshi women, they are under the shackle of patriarchy. Of course, you have to change the society, you have to change the mindset, you have to do this, you have to do that, but that is a long-term process. But in the short term, teaching them self-defense, I believe, can do miracles. It might be I would rephrase Neil Armstrong, that it might be a small step for a woman to learn a few moves of martial art, but I strongly believe it's a giant leap towards women empowerment in Bangladesh, and maybe in the world.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up my questions on Project Warrior Women Bangladesh. I wanted to end the interview by congratulating you on your recent promotion to Superintendent of Police. Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot, but can you share what you're hoping to do with your position to make people feel safer?
I want to bring some organizational changes within my capacity. I want to make police more people-friendly. I want to build more trust between police and the public. And I want the people, the station, I cannot vouch for the entire police force. It's a force of like almost 250,000 people. But within my position, I would try to make my unit more empathetic, because I believe that empathy can bring more justice. Empathy can solve more crimes than force can ever do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm wishing you luck with your new position as superintendent and everything that you're going to do with it.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Yeah, thank you so much for the
absolute honor to meet you.